don't see us as neutral. And I found this very interesting that you said this, because there was an article that came out. It was in First Things. It was about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I could be, my timeline's a little messy, but they're actually talking about Keller. And they mentioned that Keller talks about the third way. He was talking about politics. And this guy had become a political theologian, which I didn't even know was a thing. But he said, he said up to 1994, he said the culture was positive toward Christianity in the United States. 1994 to 2015, it was neutral. 2015 to now, negative. Do you agree with that type of assessment on where the culture's at? I mean, not necessarily everything in the article, because you haven't read it, I know, but just as an overarching kind of flyover, do you agree with that concept?
So if I'm going to be real bold here, because it's just you and me and no one else is listening, but the bleed over of American evangelicalism to Canada and actually the rest of the world is having a corrosive effect, and it's measurable. Let me share some of how it's measured. Here in Canada, evangelicals per population from World War II to 2016 was bumped around 12 to 14% of population, 12 to 14. And so as the population of Canada grew, mainline denominations lost ground, evangelical denominations maintained market share since 12 to 14%. That's to 2016. From 2016 to 2019, it went from actually 12% was in 2016 to 6.4% in 2019. In 2019 to 2021, it's down to under 5%, 4.8%. So it's gone from 12% to under 5% from 2016 to 2021. What's the change here? If you look at Canadian evangelicals themselves, if you ask all religious groups, which and I'm using Canada as the example, I think probably you can, the translations are pretty easy to make. If you ask all religious groups who has the most positive influence on our country, the group that thinks the highest of themselves in terms of of kind of what they think others think of them, evangelicals, like far and out what everybody else. So we think we do, the most, the best. If you ask Canada-wide, who is the most dangerous to society, Canada-wide says evangelicals, more than Muslims, more than any other group, evangelicals. And so the moral high ground, we don't have it. And there's lots of reasons for it. And I would spend too long in this conversation doing that, but we don't have it. And so I think at this moment, we're going to have to sort of adopt a posture, if we're going to be effective, adopt a posture of where the global church is, where they don't have it either. They're considered the scum of the earth, dogs, everything else, and yet they're winning people to Christ like crazy. And so it's no longer demand our rights that's going to get us to where we need to go. It isn't going to be any kind of political movement that is going to change the hearts and minds of the mission field. It's actually becoming what Christ has asked us to become in the very first place. And that's a slow burn. That's a slow cook. We can't do that overnight. It's actually, but it's amazing what 12 unschooled, uneducated people did 3 centuries later. And so that's where we are, I think.